Hi everybody, welcome to my video for reference library. Many of you have asked me for details and here it is. So we're talking about a reference library, what I call a reference library, and what I say that spirit uses to bring forward their messages and their memories. It is the most beautiful, amazing thing that I see a pattern with in my mediumship as well as my students' mediumship. I feel that it's very interesting that in me realizing this, I would think of something or I would do a reading and the soul would come in with evidence, and then I would begin to see that same piece of evidence that I was given, whether it was in an image or I heard it or I felt it. And I started to realize, wow, what about if I can sit with expanding what I know in my mind and give spirit more to check out of something that I see as a library. That's where it came, wow, reference library. Some people call it, so I call it the reference library, and some people call it um, other things. Obviously, everyone uses the term that most resonates with them, and that's brilliant and fantastic. For me, with the symbology and thinking of how the conscious mind would remind me of this, I thought of a library. And I started to say, okay, well, you know what? How can I expand and how can I continue to give them more? And so I started to research things. And I started, for example, to research learning every birthstone, so that if spirit came in and they wanted to tell me that their birthday was in July, I would simply see a ruby birthstone and I would know, okay, they're giving me the month of July and I know it's a birthday. You would know it's a birthday because all you would see, hear, or feel, or you want to say that it's a ruby, that it would be July, right? So if you learned all 12 of them, you would have the reference to all 12 months. How brilliant is that? You would also do something so brilliant as to learn your states and be able to expand with your reference library in that way as well, right? Because if you knew all your states and somebody wanted to talk about a different state, then boom, right? It's right there. You'd know the flags of each state, which is one way that I kind of learned it. Other people, and what I use as reference for the students was for them to learn the globe, the locations of the states and how the shape of their states looked, and also international places. But I really like the flags because, again, the flags were able to tell me, was it, in reference to Ireland, I know I want to say there's a connection to Italy. I know I want to say there's a connection to Mexico, to Puerto Rico, to Germany, right? That was pretty brilliant. And again, we learned this, spirit knows that you know this, your messenger guide knows that you know this. And if the visiting spirit is never used the medium before, or is not a strong communicator, because that is in their personality, then you know that your messenger guide is going to assist and going to step in and say, well, hey, we can give her this because she's going to know very quickly what you're referring to. When we're talking about this, we're talking about giving them as much as we can so that they can give as much as they desire through their heart to the recipient. Because if they only have 30 minutes with a medium, they become the voice for them. They want to give as much as they can. And when you have references and you're expanding, not just based on your experience, right? Because they're going to check out your experience. They're going to check out the emotions attached to your relationships, such as how your mother feels, how you feel for your mother, how your father feels, how you feel for your father, how you feel as a mother, right? So on and so forth. You can sometimes in a reading see these things and you're thinking probably for a second, especially in the beginning, developing mediums or psychics, like, why am I thinking of myself at this moment? But you're really not thinking of yourself. What they're doing is they're checking out that experience, that emotion that you've experienced in life, to reference it to something similar in the memories that they bring. Because again, the soul's consciousness still exists. The soul's consciousness, it exists, and the memories exist within that soul consciousness. And so when we connect to that soul, whether it is detached from the physical body, we still, even though it's detached from the physical body, we are able to receive those memories as impressions. So we feel it, we hear it, we see it, we know it. When we're reading psychically, we are reading a soul, and that person is still here. It's an incarnate, but it's still the same thing. We're reading the soul, we're reading the thoughts, the emotions, and the environment, right, of that soul. So we have that, all right? And so it's very exciting. Also, you can expand with foods. When you go to the grocery store, go into the authentic aisle and take pictures of each selection and study them. Look at the labels, even if you just remember the color of the labels. And that's something so brilliant. You can do it with brands of detergent, brands of softener, brands of bath soap, brands of furniture, brands of clothes, of shoes, of socks. Everybody has a personality, and through that personality, they become very unique in appearance. They have preferences for all the things I've mentioned. So what are the preferences that you remember of your grandmother? When you think of your grandmother, I'm sure you can think of one brand name thing, whether it was the dishwashing liquid that she used or the bath soap that she used, that was very distinctive and noticeable then when you went to her home. And when you smell it, you remember her, that those impressions come in of those memories. Well, I mean, you can still feel the same way. It's like if you put a shirt on and you purchase that shirt in Hawaii, every time you put a shirt on after you get back home, the impression of the memories start to come into your conscious mind, right? Or from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind. It's so very brilliant what the mind does and what the subconscious mind does. So if you want to expand with numbers, you can expand with numbers. You can say, okay, let me focus on sitting with the spirit world, and let me push out my aura, and let me ask them to give me a month. Show me how you're going to give me a month, and tell them, okay, let me feel it, let me hear it, let me see it, let me just know that I want to say. That's when all your clairs are going, when you know you want to say. Okay, so you can sit with spirit. That's another strong tool that I suggest to my students. You can sit with spirit outside of the readings. It kind of feels like you're being silly in the beginning, but the validation that comes in and the synchronicities that follow, there's no possible way that you could have made it up. There's no possible way that those things are not real. And when you open up to trusting the spirit world, trust me when I tell you, they will continue to give you so much back. They truly, really, genuinely will continue to give you so, so much back. So know that you can expand with names, do the same thing. How you expand with names is, for example, go back to the 1940s. What were the top songs in the 1940s? What were the top songs in the 1950s? Same thing, 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s. What were the top songs? Write them down. Write them down for 3 days in a row. So they're in your reference library. Listen to them. And again, you're giving so much more for spirit to give you. Anybody could say, any medium could say, hey, you have a grandmother. She loved you so much, and she's coming in, and, she really loves to make quilts. Well, what about if you talked about the sewing machine that she made the quilt with, the brand of the sewing machine? Because now you've looked up different sewing machines that were used in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or whenever they made the sewing machines and thereafter, right? And you can be specific about those things. How beautiful is that? Okay. So you can do this with anything. Again, foods, numbers, names, right? Songs. You could do it with furniture. Man, I think about right now, furniture they sell now, they didn't sell when I was young, with that I can remember in the 80s at all. So what were the, most selling furniture brands in the 1970s and 60s and the 50s, right? In the 40s and in the 80s, so on and so forth. Get creative with it. Give more to put in your reference library so that spirit can check those experiences and memories out so that they can give more and you can be more detailed. I mean, sky's the limit with this. You can look up women's perfumes. Again, we're the top 10 for 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s to current date. Colognes for men, any of those things at all right? So, I think that it is such a great way to really dedicate time to improve your mediumship and really let spirit know that we love them and that we are serious about being an instrument for them and allowing those impressions to come in loud and clear. So that is what I want to give you guys today in reference to the details to what a reference library is, or what I call a reference library. And again, many people use different terms for it, but I'm sure many mediums really have understood this very well. This is my philosophy and my experience and the term that I use. So give it a try and let me know how it goes. I would love to know how it goes. Again, this is something that I have found that it makes my medium stronger in confidence, stronger with their links. It helps them to expand on their evidence as well, and just know that they are in the right direction with the unfoldment of what they're receiving. So thank you so very much. This is Lillian Suarez, and this was details of what I call a reference library. Thank you. Bye for now, everybody.